Hello, sisters. So, welcome to our Mastering Mindset training for the week. I hope you enjoy the view behind me here. We are at Deem Lake in Indiana. It's very beautiful here. So, I hope that today is very refreshing to you and just really helps you kind of get your mindset in the right place for the next 30 days. So, this membership is all about you, ladies. And I asked you, what are you struggling with when it comes to your mindset? And it's kind of crazy because the all around answer was staying positive, staying joyful despite those around us, or, other people's negativity can sometimes bring us down. That was kind of like the theme of what everyone's answer was. So that is our focus for today's training. The topic is mastering our mind despite those around us. Okay, and I have 4 practical tips that I want to give you all today to do this. So when I asked the question in the Soul Sisters group, what do you struggle with your mind? Some of you said taking on the feelings of and the emotions of other people. You just really do that overwhelmingly, and those around you, you just feel what they're feeling and their emotions just come onto you, and I can understand that. I think that's very common for people. We become who we are around. You've maybe heard that saying, show me your 5 closest friends and I will show you your future. And it's so true. The people that are around us, we just take on those emotions, whether they're good or bad, which is why it's so important that we are surrounded by a community like this of other women who are going to be positive and be a light for you. So I would say that's not one of my 4 things for you, but I would say take a look at your community. Take a look at those that are surrounding you, that are pouring into you every day, or maybe not pouring into you, but sucking the life out of you. That it was a wake-up call that I had to do recently, because the answer that you all had is something that I can very much relate to, because I felt like personally, like the past 5 years, I just kept blaming everyone else for the way that my life was. Like, if my husband wasn't this way, then I wouldn't be this way. If my in-laws or my parents or my siblings or, my friend didn't do that to me, or if they weren't so negative, I wouldn't be so negative. And while there is a truth to that, like I said, we become who we're around. It's also only up to us to change that. So I can't just set and say, when my husband becomes a more devout Christian or a more positive person or whatever in my mind I think he should become, I can't just sit around and say, when he does that, then I'll become better. Because see, our memory verse for the month, right? Philippians 1:27, it says to live your life worthy of the call of Christ. So when I stand face to face with God, it's not going to matter. I can't stand there and say, well, my husband did this, so, because God's going to say, you're not responsible for him. You're responsible for yourself. So that brings us to our first action point of the day, which is to decide. You have to decide that you are no longer going to live that way. And I know when you're stuck in that negativity, it's really hard to make that decision. And you're in this group because you want to rise up, right? You want to become the woman you're supposed to be. And I can remember, just because it was so close, like it was 5 months ago for me. I can just remember feeling so stuck. Like, I want to do better, but I don't know how. And I think it really comes to, you have to reach a point within yourself where you just decide that you no longer want to live this way. And whether those around you change or not, you are going to change. Because see, our verse says that we have to live a life worthy of the call of Christ, because we were called to be a light. So our job is to be a light to those around us. And if you are an empath where you take on other people's emotions and feelings, and the people around you are feeling really stuck or really depressed or anxious or worried, then it's easier for you to become like that and feel like that. And that's where these other action steps are going to come into play. But first and foremost, you have to decide in your mind and remind yourself that you were called to be a light. So you have to decide that you're going to be that, whether those around you are that or not. And once you decide that, then there are some action steps that you have to take to move forward in that decision, because it's one thing to just decide something. I decided multiple times that I wanted things to change, but then I didn't do what was necessary to change it. So the decision is the first part of it. But then you have to move on to our second D of the day, which is discuss. And I'm so proud of Jamie here. She said, her prayer request this past week was to pray for her as she went to have a really hard conversation with her father. And, she has asked all of us to be praying for her. He's an alcoholic, and they had a situation in her home, and she had to go have that hard discussion and set boundaries. And that's where actually this second D comes from. So thank you for that, Jamie, because you were a reminder to us that sometimes you have to have that hard discussion. And I'm not good at this. In fact, I avoid it at all costs, because no one wants to go to someone and tell them hard things, right? But if we want to truly rise up and become who God has created us to be, we have to set boundaries. Even Jesus set boundaries. When you look back in the Bible, he got away in the morning time. He went up to the mountain where nobody else was and had his quiet time with the Father, even though he was the same as the Father. He still set that time apart. He set those boundaries for himself, because he knew that if he didn't go fix his mind on God, that the distractions of the world would take over. He set boundaries for himself. And that's an example to us of what we have to do. We have to set boundaries. And in order to set boundaries, sometimes we have to discuss these things with those around us. We have to have that hard discussion with those who are negatively impacting us. And so this can look a couple different ways. If it is a friendship, sometimes you may have to just kind of distance yourself from that friendship. If it's a friendship that is constantly just pulling you down or pulling you further away from God, you may have to set a boundary there where I'm not going to spend every weekend with this person. If it is a friendship that you love and encourages you, but yet there is some negativity there, maybe you just need to talk about that with that person. Sit down and say, look, I love you, but this is how our relationship is affecting me, and I have to make some changes. Now, the hard part, here's where I'm sure most of you struggle with, because this is where I struggle. The hard part is when it is with your family, right? Because your husband, you're married to. They're not going anywhere. Your parents are your parents. They're not going anywhere. Your in-laws, they're your in-laws. Your children, they're your children, right? Family, we choose our friends. Our family, we don't. So this is where it gets a little bit more sticky. And this is where, like Jamie said, you have to set boundaries. So you obviously don't want to just say, peace out, hubby, because you're bringing me down, right? That's not what God wants us to do. But what you have to say, and what I had to say back at the end of 2020 was, look, you can continue to live this way if you want, but I won't. I am not going to live another year depressed and anxious and stressed and all of these things. Like, I am going to rise up, and I want you to come with me. I want us to be positive together, but whether you do or not, I'm going to. And that's where these boundaries really come into play, because let's say maybe it's your family that you see every week. Maybe you need to stop seeing them every week if they are very negative. So this is an issue that we ran into with our family, where maybe there's a lot of complaining going on, just constant complaining. The Bible says, do all things without arguing and complaining. If you're surrounded by constant complaining, it's going to bring your positivity down, right? So you might have to come to that family and say, we love you, but we're not going to come over here every single weekend if it's going to be constant complaining. Or, this is, so for our example, this is the way we want to raise our children. We want them to see what a loving family looks like, and this doesn't look like a loving family. So until we can fix these things, we're going to distance ourselves a little bit. And that's a hard one. That's probably the hardest one of our 4Ds today, is to actually discuss with that person what you want. But here's the cool thing too, though. You may be afraid of that conversation. I know I was, and I know I haven't even had some of these conversations yet. This is actually good for me too, because it's reminding me that I need to do these things. But for the discussion part, you never know what beauty may come out of it. So I told my husband at the end of 2020 that things had to change, and I was changing whether he was or not. And here we are, almost mid 2021. That's crazy. And our life is better than it's been in a long time, because he knew I was serious. He knew I was setting boundaries, and he knew if he wanted to come along with me, he had to change too. And we're much better. We're not perfect. By no means. We never will be. But we are much better. We're getting to a point where we're making progress, and we're looking to the Lord more. So the second one is to discuss. So you need to write in your workbook. Make sure you download the PDF if you didn't. You have a workbook for this lesson. Write out those names that you need to have those hard discussions with, and decide to do it. Okay, the third D is discipline. Discipline is a hard one, but the Bible talks over and over and over about discipline. It says no discipline's fun at the time. In fact, it's hard. And I know this one because I was in the fitness industry for so long, and fitness isn't easy. Getting healthy isn't easy. Mastering our mind isn't easy. But it says no discipline is fun at the time. In fact, it's hard, but it produces reward for those who stick with it. And that's in Hebrews. So I want you to decide that you're going to change. Discuss with those that are bringing you down that, hey, I'm moving up. I'm rising up. I'm moving on to something positive. And then discipline yourself to do it. And that's where this group is going to come in. Okay, in your book on page 3, I want you to set some realistic goals for yourself for the next 30 days. And in our Sister Success group next week, come prepared to talk about some of these goals, because we need to hold each other accountable to reach these goals. And while accountability is so important, and we're going to do that for each other, you have to choose to have the discipline to do it. You have to discipline yourself to do these things. And I want you to set goals in all areas of your life. I have given you 7 categories on your worksheet. So look at those categories, set at least one goal for yourself. Now, here's the key about those goals. Your goal cannot be based on anyone else's actions, emotions, anything else. They are your goals only. See, I used to be the queen of this. I want to lose this baby weight, right? And it's like, oh, when my husband starts eating healthy again, then it'll be easy to reach that goal. No, it doesn't matter. And that's true. There's truth to that. So I'm not trying to minimize that, because it's very true. Like when he's sitting here eating ice cream, of course I want to sit and eat ice cream too. But he's not going to reach my goals for me. I have to. So whether he does it or not, I have to choose to. Okay, so make sure your goal is solely based upon you. So if you want to get healthy, for example, if you want to lose weight, but your husband goes to the grocery every week. I don't know whose husband does that. Mine doesn't. Maybe yours does. Great for you. But if he goes and just buys crap all week, you're going to have to go to the grocery yourself. You can't put that on him to make you healthy meals. And I'm speaking to myself when I say this. Your goal has to be based on you. If you have a career goal or a business goal, for me, if I have a business goal, I have to set aside the time to do it. And I have to discipline myself to carve out that hour to work on my business or whatever it may be, okay? So set your goals and then discipline yourself to do it. And don't let it come off of anyone else. So when someone else's emotions start to get you down for the day and make you want to not go after that goal, pull out this worksheet. Look at the reason you're doing it. Remind yourself why you're doing it, and then decide to do it. Even if it's just for 30 days, just do this with me for 30 days, for the next month until our next Mastering Mindset training. Just commit. And I know commitment is hard. So when you struggle, go into Mighty Networks, go into the Soul Sisters group, and let us know. Hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I really wanted to do today, and then this happened. And we can help encourage each other, okay? Discipline is so important, and we can help hold each other accountable to that. Okay, and then the 4th D for today's training is daily. So what I mean by daily is daily renewing your mind on Christ, because this is the number one thing that is going to help us get to those goals that we have for ourselves and help us stay positive. And that's by renewing our mind. So I put the memory verse, or I put a verse in your PDF. It's Romans 12:2, but it says, don't be conformed to this world. So one of Angela's worries was taking on the troubles of the world, right? And I would challenge you all to go even as far as stop watching the news. I know we need to be informed. It is important. I don't watch the news anymore. I don't. If there's something major that I need to know, you're going to hear about it at the grocery, at the gas station. People always talk about the negative. You're going to hear about it whether you watch the news or not. I know all about everything that's going on, and I don't watch the news. Why? Because everyone around me talks about the negative state of this world. So I challenge you to stop watching it. Stop taking in the negativity. And I know it's like crazy, counterintuitive, but we're filling our minds with all this negativity. So, of course, we're going to take on the world's troubles because the world's troubles are all around us unless we choose to stop listening to it. So, fill yourself with the good news, which is God's word, instead of the world's news. So it says, don't be transformed or don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. So the way we do that is by coming every single day to God and saying, God, this is my struggle. This is my current struggle. I need your help in it. Read his word for encouragement. Set aside some time to pray. Memorize your verse daily. No excuse, okay? For the next 30 days. So those are our 4 tips to help you. I wish I had like some easy solution because if it were easy, we'd all be doing it, right? But the reason why we're all struggling with the same thing of letting others' negativity consume us is because it is hard. But here's the beauty about hard things. When we have hard things going on, it causes us to lean in and rely on God more. And that's what I have learned I can't tell you how bad our situation was 6 months ago. And that's just honest. And I said, God, I need your help because I can't be this negative person anymore. Shelby talked about how she used to feel so positive and bubbly, and now she feels so negative. And that was me. I was so positive, and I started thinking, what has changed? Why am I this negative person? Because I'm letting others affect me, and I'm not fixing my eyes on Jesus. So I put a saying above my bed. It says, give it to God and go to sleep. So Jody mentioned, just taking on other people's feelings. Give it to God. And I know that's so much easier said than done. And you probably have to give it to God like 30 times over and over again throughout the day. I know I do. But give it to God daily, hourly if you have to. Keep giving it back to him. Keep giving it back to God. Discipline yourself to do what you know you need to do, whether they're going to do it or not. Decide that you're not going to live stuck anymore. You are going to rise up and be that light that you were called to be, and discuss with those around you and let them know. Like, get excited about it. Let them know, like, I am becoming a new person. God is helping me, and I want you to come along with me. But whether you do or not, I'm going to become this person. And then choose to. And here's what happens. See, because when I told my husband that, he was like, okay, whatever, But they start to see our example. And that's what the Bible says, be an example through your actions. So those around you are going to start to see your example. So in the situation of our negative family, we've started just quoting memory verses out loud in front of them. And it helps because here's what we're teaching our son this week. Do all things without arguing or complaining. Philippians 2:14. That's our verse for the week. So when we're around our family and the complaining and arguing kicks in, we literally, I say, Saber, what's our verse? He'll say, do all things without arguing and complaining. And I use it as like, because he's complaining and he's arguing. He's a 3-year-old boy, but they hear it, right? They hear it. They hear the example. The people around you are going to hear your example. So be it. Decide to be it. Get excited for what God's going to do. Commit to him daily. Renew your mind daily. And then when those worries and stresses and anxieties and negativity is taking over, just give it back to God. Give it back to God. Set those goals for yourself because we're going to discuss them in next week's meetup for our success group. Okay. Make sure you take some time before next week when we meet to write out these goals for yourself, who you want to become as a woman of God. Okay. Decide to do it. It's only up to you. It's only up to you. And I understand how hard it can be. But when those negative people come around you and start to suck the life out of you, when that horrible news starts to suck the life out of you, turn the TV off. Mute your ears when the complaining begins. Walk outside if you have to. If you're at dinner with your family and the complaining begins, set those boundaries. Say, listen, we're not living this way anymore. And walk outside if you have to. Quote the verse to them. Do all things without complaining. Do all things without arguing. Instill it in your mind. Renew your mind daily. Ask God for help, and he's going to help. So I hope this was encouraging to you. Here's what I'm going to do. I want you guys to make sure you're sending me your prayer requests, okay? Because we're going to be praying for each other. I'm going to close this out with a prayer for the requests that have been given to me. And we're going to meet up next week and discuss all this. So, Lord, I just thank you for this beauty of your creation. I pray that throughout this week, you can just carve out an hour for every single one of these ladies, not even an hour, 30 minutes to set aside, do this training, and really just talk with you. I pray that you give them the strength that they need to rise up, to decide that they were called to be a light, to help them do it despite those around them, to help them be the example in a negative world and shine Jesus in a world full of darkness. I pray that you give them that strength. I pray that you give them that determination and that discipline. I pray that this sisterhood can just encourage each other, lift each other up. And I just want to pray specifically for the sisters who need it. I pray for Stephanie this week as she has her court date on Wednesday. Pray that you would be over the situation. And I pray also that you give her strength as she is trying to finish up her nursing school. I know that's a lot on the shoulders of one person. So just carry that burden for her. I pray for Shelby as she is struggling, staying a light to her husband. I pray that you would just help her to do that. I know that I'm just grateful that she doesn't want to disrespect him. She wants to honor him and submit to him like your word says. And sometimes it's really hard when we don't feel loved back. So I pray that you would just wrap your love around her and make that enough so that she can respect him, whether he's on the same page as her or not, and that her example will lead him towards you. I pray that for all of our marriages, that we can just be that woman that leads our husbands towards you. I pray for Jamie, and I'm thankful for her example of setting boundaries with our families. Pray that her father was receptive to that. I pray that you can just bring some healing in their life, healing to him, and just help her to look to you, because that's a hard thing to have to do, but that you would just give her